Now let's talk a little bit about what I possessed and talk about your role in that story and in the story of Ted's. So I'd like you to open your workbooks to page 1. I think page 1 is on the back of the cover. It is on the back of the cover. It says Star Qualities. Okay, so what did I possess? You have a little cheat sheet there. It's on the, just take the, it's on the back of the cover. So is everybody there? Okay. Everybody find it? Okay, what did I possess? I mean, there's a little cheat sheet for you, but what did I possess that was probably the key thing? Okay, so I want you to write where it says knowledge. Knowledge is the foundation of all sales and service success. Knowledge is the foundation of all service and sales success. How many of you would agree with that? I mean, you may have techniques that you can use, but techniques without knowledge will not get you anywhere. What retailer has great, their salespeople have great knowledge? What retailer? Nordstrom. How many of you agree, how many of you been to Nordstrom before? I worked with them for 5 years. It's amazing how they train people to go to different departments, and every single person knows a lot about everything that they're selling. So why do you go there? Because it's entertaining. You might also write down knowledge can be engaging and entertaining. How many of you agree that some of the things I talked about were interesting? Raise your hands if you'd agree. They were interesting. Now, when they're interesting, people get engaged. And how many of you agree that shopping is a form of entertainment? So you want to write down, when you're knowledgeable, you entertain, you engage, and you educate. When you educate, people feel that you're giving them a gift. Now, let me ask you a question after you finish writing. Just look at me for a second. How do you think I got so knowledgeable? I worked in a lot of restaurants for 13 years. I worked in Pub Bar, the Hawk and Dove. Anybody ever heard that? It's a very famous place. I worked in New York at 1 Fifth Avenue in a fine dining restaurant. I worked at a place called New Heights, which is fine dining in D.C. I worked at Paulo's Restaurant, which was the busiest restaurant in the world per square foot in 1987. I made $150,000 for 4 years in a row. Say yes. Yes. But what was one of the key things that helped me do that? Yes. Yeah, I practiced a lot. I had my manager, Michael O'Grady, lights, camera. I'll never forget it. It was Christmas Eve. I don't know what year it was, but he gave me a little black satchel, and it was a tape recorder. And he said, I think you're a really good speaker, Bob, but I think you could sell more. So I practiced over 10 hours over a period of a year, and I made $10,000 more. How much was I paying myself an hour? Now, raise your hands. How many of you would like to get paid $1,000 an hour? Raise your hands. So you know, you may want to write this down. Repetition's the mother of skill. So if you do a table visit, and you've done it a number of times, how many of you agree if you do a table visit on a single item 10 times, how many of you agree you'll feel more comfortable? Raise your hands. Okay, so what's the story behind the story? How was I so knowledgeable? Okay, but how did where did I get that knowledge? Pardon me? Yeah, because I'll give you an example. Lights, camera. I had a chef. His name was Adam Osga. Adam he went to Culinary Institute in Hyde Park, and he was an amazing chef. But for the first year or two, he was, old school. Yelling, screaming, throwing knives. Any of you seen that before? Because chefs work in small places with heat, right? So. But what happened was Michael O'Grady, I wrote this big book about him and another book coming out, and Michael O'Grady taught him to be a partner with us. He used to call us Trons. And then after a while, we began to realize that really Adam was key for our success because Adam held the keys to the treasure of knowledge. Now, what did Adam do as a chef to help us? Okay, what did he teach? Okay, let me give you an example. Lights, camera. Okay, one of the things Adam did is he participated in every pre-shift. But before the pre-shift in the opening, which I was fortunate enough to be part of, we would break down every dish into what I call raw prepped final. And imagine this, lights, camera. Imagine if you had a whole grouper. How many are familiar with grouper? If you had a whole grouper, would it be better to show the staff the fish or just to tell them? So if you show them, okay, and you all are chefs, you know about fish. What are the eyes like when it's fresh? They're clear. What are the gills? Pink or bright red because of the oxygen. And if you bounce on the flesh, what happens? Springs back. So I don't know if you could get a trout or, a whole salmon, but it was interesting that he would do that. Then he would cut the fillet, and then we could see through the fillet because, when a fish is fresh, it's translucent. Then he would have olive oil because he'd marinate olive oil. Then he'd have a handful of rosemary, a handful of thyme, handful of sage, handful of garlic, and we would smell it. Okay, what's rosemary smell like? Like Christmas. It does because it's piney. Right? What's thyme smell like? Lemon, right? So we got to experience dish in a different way. What senses were involved? Sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then he would show us the saffron linguine that I talked about before. We showed us a tin of saffron. Now, how many of you would agree saffron's expensive? How much is it for a tin? It's more expensive than marijuana. I mean, let's face it. I don't know how I know that, but how many of you agree it's more expensive? Never mind. But wouldn't you agree that's interesting, right? So now we understood that the saffron was kneaded into and we got to smell it, we got to taste it. It had a kind of an interesting taste. And then he showed us a pasta that we made in-house. He showed us how that was. So the pasta pre-cooked was this big. It cooked down to this size. Then we had fresh spinach from a local farm, and that was unusual in those days. And then when he cooked it, it started this big, and it got to this big. Now, lights, camera. Then he'd have us stand up, and we'd have to do like a presentation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're featuring a grouper scampi style. It's a fresh fillet of Florida black grouper, rubbed with olive oil, dusted with rosemary, sage, thyme, and garlic, marinated for a day, grilled on a flat grill, finished in the oven, and served with a white wine shallot butter sauce. And it's served with saffron linguine and fresh spinach. It's awesome. Now, give that chef a round of applause. Now, wouldn't you, and so that was in the opening, but we also continued that practice. And I know that there's some difficulties for pre-shifts. And we'll talk a little bit about that, how you can overcome those things. But how many of you agree by showing and not just telling, that's a very powerful way to get product knowledge into your staff? How many, raise your hands if you'd agree. Say yes. So I really want you to think about, how important your role is. And really, Adam was, I made $150,000, but Adam was my ace in the hole. I mean, anytime, I love to bring Adam into the dining room because every time I did, he walked through the dining room, he, put on his chef jacket. Now, you guys have chef jackets? So he walked in, you do that, right? Walked in the dining room, and what does everybody, the table next to him are like, well, how come he didn't visit my table? So, the chef to me became my partner, and that's why, today I want to share some of those techniques and those things that Adam did that made us so successful. Because a lot of companies studied us. Red Lobster, Olive Garden, Disney studied us. That's how I got a job with Disney for 3 years, training all the waiters, and they increased sales by $66 million. So, how many of you agree you play a key role in product knowledge? Yes? Okay. Let's just finish up this little piece here, and then I'm going to take you through a couple of techniques. One is the guided tour. One is the lines to sell by. So you're part of that. And then we're going to talk about the guided tour, and then I'm going to tell you a story. How many of you agree that a complaint is a gift? How many of you have had to go in the dining room and handle a complaint? How many of you agree that you are sometimes the manager, right? Because sometimes you're the sole manager in the room. So we're going to talk about that. Say yes? Okay. So was I enthusiastic in the story? Was I enthusiastic about what I was selling? Why? Because the chef and the manager helped me be knowledgeable, so I was more comfortable. So you may want to write down, you have to be enthusiastic about what you're selling. If you just say tonight's soup is gumbo, okay, I got to go. That's not going to really excite the staff, is it? By the way, I ate twice yesterday over in the closest Ted's here. It's on Lucky Street. Yeah, who's from that restaurant? We got somebody here. Nice to see you. No, it was great. It was great. It was great. Don't worry. It was great. Okay, so you play a part in the enthusiasm. Okay, and that means when you're talking about something, you have to know a lot about it, which you do, and you have to be passionate about it. Now, was I empathetic in the story? Yes or no? Okay, who's your customer? Who is your customer? Okay, the server's your customer, so write down. My customers are the servers, the hosts, the bartenders, and the guests. I have 3 or 4 different levels of customers. So I have to do the same thing. I have to give great customer service to my internal customer, which is my staff. How many of you agree that chefs can make an amazingly powerful difference for a restaurant? I mean, you see one chef versus another, and it's just night and day. Okay, was I empathetic in the story? What did I see this guy doing? The commander, what did I see him doing? What sitting by himself. So, I mean, I'm not assuming he's a loser, but he was by himself. So, by being empathetic and kind and noticing that he liked wine, that led to $9,000. So you want to be empathetic to the guest and you want to be empathetic to the waiters because it's a partnership, isn't it? Yes? Okay, so the next thing is what? What do we got here? Planned approach. Now, did I have a planned approach to greeting? How was my greeting different? Think about, okay, well, what I did was I greeted him at the door, and then I helped seat him. And so that was a powerful thing because when I do that, I'm setting myself up for success. I can see how people are dressed. If people are carrying packages, or I can eavesdrop. You might want to write this down. I eavesdrop with the intent to help. If you're in the dining room, you eavesdrop with the intent to help. You're nosy, you're listening. You're not nosy, but you're listening. You're eavesdropping with the intent to help. Say yes? Okay, the next thing is, was I a beverage expert? Okay, what beverages did I suggest? Bottled water, Bellini, cocktail with a story, wine with a story. What else? Okay, and you have stories behind your signature items, right? And you have bottled water, right? But I agree, a lot of people right don't know you'd have it. Because what do most waiters say when it comes to water? Hi, would you like still sparkling or Atlanta's finest? Now, I'll give you an example. Lights, camera. I was recently in Grand Cayman at the Ritz-Carlton, and I was working with the breakfast crew in a restaurant called Seven, and they would sell 3 bottles of Fiji water a day. And after I got the waiters to say, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy bottled water, we have Fiji still and we have San Pellegrino sparkling. They sold 8 cases a day. Now, how did that happen? You may want to write this down. Selling is just a matter of changing a few words, and you can help with that. Wouldn't you agree that some waiters are like amazing? They just have the right words, and that's what Lines to Sell By was all about. And you play an integral part in that. Okay, and then now was I a menu expert? Okay, what did I tell you about the ravioli? Anybody remember anything about the ravioli? Yeah, chive butter sauce and Romano ricotta fontina cheese. So, the chef helped me with that and the managers and all that sort of thing. So, okay, and then I had a planned approach to write this down, planned approach to bringing the chef out. And by the way, Michael O'Grady, my manager, my mentor, taught me that. He said, Bob, when somebody compliments a dish, bring the chef out. I owe a lot to Michael O'Grady. Okay. He's the magnificent manager. Okay, at the end of the meal, was I at the end of the meal? How many of you agree a lot of waiters do this? Lights, camera. They kind of come tentatively to the table and go like, did you save room for this? Raise your hands if you've seen this. Okay, now, is that a good approach? No. What do? You clear the table, and what do? What do? You bring it. You don't ask. Never ask. Never say, oh, would you like to see the dessert menu? No, I'm too full. And I'm out of, and room. So you can see, like, by being a little more assertive, and I group together the desserts with what else? With cordials by brand name. If I say Grand Marnier, can you see the bottle? Raise your hands. You can see the bottle. And I grouped it with a special drink that had like a little twist to it with a chocolate disappearing spoon. Yes? Okay, and then I was I was a check presentation expert. Now, how did I present the check? What did I explain to the person? That I'm still their server. I said, there's no rush. I'm here to say. Now, that makes people, now I learned as a waiter that was a really cool trick, because if I used to put the check down and try to force people off a table, you know what they'd do with the check? They would sit on the check. They'd take the check off the table and sit on it. What were they saying? I'm camping. I'm not moving. Say yes. So you have to be a master at doing that. And then at the end of the meal, was good? My goodbye. What's a typical goodbye? What's a typical goodbye? Yeah, thanks for coming. Have a great day. How many of you agree that people don't listen to that? How many of you agree that people don't listen to hi, how are you? You mean, how are you is not really a question, is it? Do people really answer it and say, well, my cousin's sick, my daughter's in college, and they don't answer the question. So I didn't ask questions. I just said, welcome to Palos. We're delighted to have you, and thank you for your patience, because it's well worth the wait. And then I went into my sales presentation. Okay, so the other thing is to be a goodbye expert. Okay, now, how many of you agree that sometimes when there's no other manager, you're the manager? Raise your hands. And how many of you agree that a negative behavior or an ineffective behavior not confronted is a confirmation it's okay? So I think you'd agree with me. You play a role in learning, what a server does, what a bartender does, what a host does. Yes? Okay. So, and how many of you agree that learning those skills would really elevate you and help you in your career? Raise your hands. I mean, I work with Marriott now for 25 years. I've seen people that were bussers become cooks, become chefs, and now one of the guys I worked with, his name is Wolfgang Lindenbauer. He's the vice president of Marriott International now, the vice president. He started as a busser. And so, I think that learning these kind of skills can help you grow. Yes? Yes. Good. Okay, and then the last thing was, what do we have here? Okay, so here I want you to write down, I have hospitality excellence, sales excellence, and technical excellence. Those are the three things. You've got to be technically excellent, you have to have hospitality excellence, and you have to have sales excellence or engagement excellence. And how many, okay, and I'll just say it again. Hospitality, sales, technical. And then the last thing is reading cues. Now, how many of you agree that reading cues is really critical, right? And you can tell by looking at someone's face if they're happy about a dish or not, right? Yes? Okay. All right, now, let's go ahead and turn the page. And I would like you to turn to the menu page. We're going to just shift through this a little bit. We're going to go to the menu, and I'm going to show you we're going to talk about the menu, and then we're going to talk about how this could tie into your pre-shifts. Say yes? Yes. Okay. It would be on page 7. It's just leaf through till you find a menu. Okay, you have the menu. Now, okay, everybody stop and look at me. I'm going to give you a tour, and you're going to tell me what I did, and then you're going to see how you can observe and how you can help your team members be more successful. Say yes? Yes. Okay, everybody look at me. Here we go. And then you'll look at the menu, look at me. Lights, camera. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me a few moments to tell you about a couple great things on our menu. If you look on the upper left-hand side, first one down under appetizers, you'll see our calamari. It's squid lightly dusted with seasoned flour, flash fried, and served on a bed of marinara. It's a great appetizer to share. If you look under soup, salads, and subs on that same down underneath us in the same column, second item down, you'll see our soothing and warming minestrone soup. It's made with a veal broth. It's perfect for a cold day like today. In the middle panel, you'll see our angel hair pomodoro. It's made with 100% durum wheat. It's topped with chunky marinara. I'll finish it tableside with Parmesan and cracked black pepper, and if you so choose, you can split it as an appetizer. Now, if you look on the right side, on the top, the third one down is our Leonardo's Veal Parmigiana. It's made with Plum de Veau veal. That's a brand of veal that's the best that money can buy, and it's fork tender, and it's the #1 seller. And by the way, if you all go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see the pizzas. The last one down is our yeasty, smoky flavored, thin crusted pesto pizza. I recommend one for the table to share. Say yes. Okay. What did I say first? Okay, now I want you to turn the page. I want you to just flip it. Oh, sorry. If you just turn to the next page, I think it's page 5, you'll see the guided tour. But I'm going to show you what role you play in this. And by the way, we do have some people here from the dining room managers. Will you raise your hand, the dining room managers, so I can see? We have, okay, let's give them a round of applause. All right, okay, all right. All right. All right, so what did I say first? Did I say, would you like to hear about the menu? How many of you agree, raise your hands, how many of you agree that it's very rare that waiters give tours of menus? You can go to all kinds of restaurants from all different, high level, mid-range, soft, fast casual. How many agree that very few waiters do this? Raise your hands. And if you can do it in a fast way, in a way that's not rushed, but in a way that's comfortable because you have product knowledge, then you can be really good at this. And how many of you agree there's a subliminal message? And what's the subliminal message? Have an appetizer, have a soup, have a salad, have a main. So what happens is the guest gets the opportunity to choose or refuse an item from every category. Say yes. Okay, number one, what did I say first? Okay, before that. Yes, and that, you're right, and before that. How many of you have been to a circus? Anybody been to a circus? Cirque du Soleil. What does the guy in the top hat say? He said, what is he really saying? He's saying, everybody shut up and sit down. So what you're really saying is, look at me, you're really saying this. Look at lights, camera. You're saying, put the iPhone down, you stop talking to him, and listen to me. Because I'm going to help you have a good experience. You're not saying that, but that's the message. So write down, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, then write down, as he said, please allow me. Now, is that a question? Please allow me? No, it's not a question. It's a statement, and it's like lines to sell by. It's a statement. So, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me a few moments, not a few minutes. If I say a few minutes, what's a guest going to do? They're going to be really bored, aren't they? Raise your hands if you'd agree. They're going to immediately go back to their iPhones. Okay? Then the next thing is, and I said, please allow me a few moments to tell you about a couple of great things. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to relax my audience, because a lot of times when I do training sessions, I tell people at the beginning, I never say to people, we're going to spend 6 hours together. Because if I say that to a group of people that have management people that I'm training, what do they say? What's the first thing that goes through their mind? Oh my God, 6 hours? So I want to make sure that the guest knows that I'm there to help them, and I'm going to be brief, and I'm going to be helpful. Say yes? Okay, number two, I pointed to a section. What was the section I pointed to? The appetite. Where was it? Top left. And which one? First one down. So you point the guest to a section, then a location within the section. Now, that helps everybody follow along. Now, let me give you an example. Everybody look at this gentleman here. What's your name? Okay, so let's say he's lost and he's talking to his friend here. Okay? Now, as he's talking to his friend, how many of you have seen a waiter talking at a table and no one's listening? Raise your hands if you've seen that. Okay, so if he starts talking, do I still stay talking? No. What I do is I can't jump over this thing, but I would actually go over to you and I would show you. I would stop and I would show you. And that way, so you want to write this down. When people get distracted, you stop. If they're lost, and show them the way, and then you resume. You've got to stop, because that's what good public speakers do. And we're teaching. How many of you agree that in a way, a lot of our salespeople are public speakers? And how many of you agree with me on this one? Look at me. How many agree that it's important for you to be a good public speaker too? Raise your hands. Because when you agree that in a pre-shift that you have to be a good public speaker, what do public speakers do? They motivate. What else do they do? They engage. What else do they do? They practice. How many of you agree if you practice, if you had you may want to write this down. Consider having a repertoire of 5 different pre-shifts. And, the staff's not going to be saying, oh, well, you did that before. You just start with 5. Start with 2. And just get comfortable with them. Okay. Next thing is, it says, okay, engage with a description. Okay, anybody remember what I said about the calamari? Okay. See, because you all are culinarians. Culinarians remember that stuff, right? I mean, how many of you can see marinara? You know what it is. It means of the sea. There's no meat in it, right? You know what calamari is, right? So what did I say about the soup? The minestrone. Veal broth. Okay. Now, what did I say about the pasta? Pomodoro. 100% durum wheat. And so people that are gluten, worried about that, then, they have an issue. Now, you have a gluten menu, right? I mean, you have a lot of gluten-free things. And then I talked about, what did I say about the veal dish? Fork tender, and I used the brand name. Now, where did I get that information? From the chef. You see, so you may want to write this down. When you're running a pre-shift, think about brand names. People relate to brands, don't they? Do you have a certain brand for chicken that you sometimes get? Yeah, because I thought Spring Mountain, because I saw it on some other, I work with South City Kitchen, you know that group? I work with those guys, and anyway, they had Spring Mountain on their menu. I was looking at their menus last night. And so what is Spring Mountain? Can somebody tell me what Spring Mountain is? Where's it located? North Georgia? Okay, and what's unique about that? They're naturally raised, and keep going. Okay. They're happy chickens. All right. Good. Give them a round of applause. Okay. Give her a book. Okay. Now do you see? Okay. Do you see your role in this? So we're going to summarize this in just a second. Say yes. Yes. Okay. So then the last thing was I navigated through the whole menu till I designed a meal. And how many of you agree that in that meal design I was pretty comfortable? What did I say about the pizza, by the way? What did I say? So I want you to write this down. I recommend the pesto pizza, yeasty, smoky, thin-crusted, beautiful flavored, and I recommend one for the table to share. Say it with me. One for the table to share. You see, because that's code for it's cheaper. You don't have to say it's cheaper. You just say it's great for the table to share, and people like to share and celebrate in romance. That's what. How many agree? You know, our guests. You may want to write this down. Our guests like to share, celebrate, and romance. How many of you would agree with me? I mean, that's the business we're in. We're in the business of sharing, celebrating, and romancing. And how many of you agree that when the doors open, it's a live show? The woman that did Hamburger Hamlet years ago, that was her saying, when the doors open, it's a live show, and you're on, and you better know your lines. And you play a vital role in that. Yes? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm just going to say one last thing. Will you make sure that you plan your pre-shifts? Say yes. Will you make sure that you become a subject matter expert, which you are, but you can explain your subject matter expertise to the waiters in a way that helps them understand? Yes. Will you go to a table will you encourage your waiters, if somebody compliments, for you to do a table visit and to enlighten the guest about what they loved? Yes? And will you be able to go to a table and use the empathy toolbox when a guest has a complaint and practice this? You don't have to say it. By the way, it's just a toolbox. You don't have to say all the words. You don't have to pull out the card and go, I made a mistake. Yeah, so the other thing is, will you commit to doing that? Say yes? Okay, listen, it's been a pleasure being with you. I wish I had more time. I thought it was, this is great to talk to you. I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Say yes.